ending ruined something so good, something that I'd be like, dang, I feel the blood and the glass and the agony and the just talk, just tell me where my kids are. And it was ruined. Hey, this is the Sword and the Pen Reflections. It is my casual alternative to the more formal channel, The Sword and the Pen, link up there. So I'm going to be discussing Prisoners, which is directed by Denis Villeneuve. I don't know how to say his last name. He's the guy who directed Dune, and that's why I watched this movie, because I was like, dang, if he did this and he also did Blade Runner 2049 or whatever, he must be good, so I'm gonna go check this out. It's a 2013 movie starring, well, a bunch of people who are very good, but mainly Hugh Jackman. I always want to say Huge Jackman ever since I saw that meme, and also Jake Gyllenhaal. And I want to recommend, but also not recommend this movie at the same time. The performances were, so good, so visceral. Oh, it's also got that guy from There Will Be Blood. What the heck? Paul Dano, that's his name. So he's another big player in this. The premise is this. So you've got two families who got together on Thanksgiving, and they've got a bunch of kids. Well, their two daughters went missing, and turns out they are gone. They've been disappeared. And earlier in the day, there was an RV or a camper trailer thing that some of the other kids saw in the neighborhood. And so and that's Hugh, I keep wanting to say Hugh Jackman. Hugh Jackman's kids saw this RV, and so they contacted the police, obviously, looking for missing kids, two little girls, and Jake Gyllenhaal is our lead detective. And this is a small town, so there's not many police who are on the job. Jake Gyllenhaal's basically, the only one going after this guy. So they track down the RV, and the RV was driven by Paul Dano, who is, he's clearly got some sort of a mental disability. He barely understands when people are asking him a question. He hardly speaks to them. He's not a functioning member of society, although he does have this RV. And Hugh Jackman, not Hugh Jackman, is like, this is the guy. He knows where our kids are. And Jake Gyllenhaal is like, I don't know. I know it was highly suspicious that when we found him and said, we want to talk to you, he dashed away. He got in his RV and drove off into a tree and got injured. And he's very suspicious, but at the same time, he doesn't seem capable of making two children disappear so quickly. But Hugh Jackman is certain that it is this guy, and when the guy gets released from prison, he even goes up to him in the parking lot and grabs him, and this is the kicker. Paul Dano's character is shaking and scared, but he says, they didn't cry until I left them. And of course, that sets Hugh Jackman off on this mission. He is going to find his daughters. The police can't find them anywhere. And Jake Gyllenhaal's character, who is looking for the kids, is also kind of like, I don't think that it's this guy. And when he sees Hugh Jackman acting suspiciously, going off to supposedly look for the girls, but that's not what he ends up doing. He's kind of like, okay, I think that Hugh Jackman is possibly a suspect in all of this. But there's a lot of conflict going on there. But my gosh, I just have to say, so Hugh Jackman's character, this probably won't be a huge spoiler because I think it's in the trailer. Hugh Jackman actually captures Paul Dano's character and imprisons him and essentially tortures him into tell me where the girls are. And the whole time you're going, I don't know if this guy actually knows, because this guy is not saying anything. He clearly has some mental disability of some kind. So you're like, I think you might be mistaken. He might actually be innocent. But then he does do really suspicious things. Like at one point when they're off guard, he manages to get a hold of a piece of glass and try to attack them. He's acting highly suspicious, but also you're kind of questioning the whole time, is he really guilty? But the real highlight of this movie is, my gosh, the acting performances are so good. Oh my gosh, I really felt it, especially from Hugh Jackman's character. I just felt it. And Jake Gyllenhaal, also very, very good. He didn't have as much to work with, but man, he really worked what he had. So my mom pointed out, she noticed that he had developed a tic, or the actor created a tic where he blinks just a little extra every once in a while when he's under stress. And you see it throughout the entire movie, is that every once in a while he'll do that extra squinty sort of purposeful blink, and it feels natural. You don't even notice it unless you're told about it. Like, hey, look what the actor decided to do. So really great there. You can feel the weight on these characters, and the interactions between Hugh Jackman and Paul Dano are also so good. I mean, Paul Dano, he's always, I think ever since No Country for Old Men, he's kind of been a character who I go like, he's a great actor, clearly, but it feels a little odd. But he plays this role so well. He plays the creepy guy that, maybe he's just mentally disabled. Maybe he really is the bad guy so well. You're questioning all the way up through the whole thing. So when I say I recommend this movie, I recommend it because the performances are so good and it is so intense. But I don't recommend it beyond 2 hours. So this is a 2.5-hour movie. And I will say this, the last maybe 45 minutes did feel long. Felt like, okay, let's get to the end of this. But the point where it felt the most draggy for me was when it got stupid. And it got stupid right at the end. So if you don't want spoilers, skip ahead to this time, or no, not this time. I'm just gonna skip ahead in the chapters. I'll try to make that happen. I don't know how other YouTubers do it, but I'll figure it out when I post this. So skipping, here's the spoiler. The bad guy, which is Paul Dano's caretaker aunt lady, pulls out a pistol and starts monologuing. And I honestly thought that writers, I know this was 2013, but you should know at this point that having your bad guy monologue and explain why they're doing what they do and how they've done it all this time, big revealing like this, it's so weird and it's so unnatural feeling. We don't need to know this stuff. We can figure it out. The audience can figure out why they were doing these things, or we don't even need to know why half the time. We just need to know that they were doing it, right? So Hugh Jackman figures out that it's the aunt who has the girls, and so he goes to her house armed, but not with the pistol out and ready to use. It's in his tool bag, inaccessible. And he gets in the house and he's like, got his back to the villain, and he's like, I don't want, things to be difficult between us here, but let's not make this hard. Let's just take care. And he can't do anything because she has a gun out first. She's already aiming a gun at him. So he was stupid. Like he was very smart up until this point. I mean, my gosh, the part when Jake Gyllenhaal actually breaks into the house, I thought, oh my gosh, the jig is up. He is going to be exposed, but he managed to smooth it over with him really well. He pretended that this is a house that he goes into to get drunk, and that's what happened. That he disappears into this house where he's actually keeping a guy prisoner drunk, and that's believable. And so Jake Gyllenhaal's character is like, okay, moving on. And so when he goes to the aunt's house and he doesn't have the pistol out already, I'm just going, what's the matter with you? You know that she's got your kids. Why are you gonna sneak up on her and I'll just suddenly turn around and be like, hey, I know you've got my kids. How about when she opens up the door, you're like, okay, I'm coming in now. And that's not what he did. He turns his back to the villain, and she has a pistol out aimed at him first. I was just like, oh, you stupid. And then to have her monologuing was just so stupid. I mean, I always think of this. I think of Frozone telling Mr. Incredible about how, the guy started monologuing at me. He was telling me about how I was feeble and stupid, and oh my gosh. That's what I felt like. I was hoping that Hugh Jackman was going to take advantage of this and win somehow. I'm glad that he didn't, but at the same time, I'm going, still, why are we hearing about all this stuff? Oh, it was just, yeah. So it went from so good, Academy Award-winning performances, to this is a really not good end. So anyway, end of the spoilers. I just have to say, I will not ever watch this movie again because the ending ruined it for me. The ending ruined something so good, something that I'd be like, dang, I feel the blood and the glass and the agony and the just just tell me where my kids are. And it was ruined. It was just, it went from so good to so aggravatingly juvenile in the writing that I can't watch it again. I just can't. So anyway, let me know what you guys thought. Did you think that this was as frustrating as I did? I mean, it was so painful at the end there. I can't imagine that anybody walked away from this thinking that it was brilliant all the way through to the end, but I can imagine everybody going, dang, those were such good perform. I mean, my gosh, when Jake Gyllenhaal, first of all, that scene with the sink, incredible. And then the scene where Jake Gyllenhaal walks into the room and sees all of those tubs, I'm just like, the horror was so real. So anyway, let me know what you thought. Otherwise, please like, subscribe, hit the bell for notifications. If you're feeling really generous, maybe check out my Patreon or my Ko-fi. I do prefer Ko-fi because they do not take a percentage of what you give to creators, whereas Patreon does. They take at least 10%. Otherwise, happy movie going and be good to yourself.